Luminar AI has a lot of tools and capabilities within it. And one of the ones that we want to explore is how Luminar AI works with black and white photos. Now, there is a black and white conversion tool in there. You can just push a button and you get an automatic black and white. But that's not the end of the journey for black and white photography. There are a few tweaks that we need to do, and that's what we're going to take a look at in this video. Hi, my name is William Beem. I'm a photographer in Central Florida, and I would love to show you more about Luminar AI. In this video, we're going to take a look at a couple of portraits. We're going to take a look at a couple of travel photos, and we'll see what it takes to do some black and white conversion in Luminar AI. So why don't we go ahead and we'll start up with one of these photos. All right, what you're looking at is a close-up of actually one of my favorite buildings. This is in Las Vegas. I think it's called the Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health. I could be wrong about that. I think it's a Frank Gehry architecture. But it's just a very fanciful looking building. You can see a lot of curves. And what I like about it is that it just has this metallic exterior. It has a lot of angles and curves and also contrast. So that's what we want to try and bring out. So let's go ahead and click on Edit. One of the first things I always like to do is just check on my composition. I like a 16:9 crop. And you can see I had one on here before. The reason I like the 16:9 crop is it just gets me a little bit closer to my subject. It also gets rid of some of the stuff that I really don't need. So if you can see up here, outside of the crop frame, there's a bit of sky. And if we had something going on up there that was interesting, I might have left it in. With Luminar AI, you could easily do a sky replacement and put something in there. But in this case, since we're going to go ahead and do a black and white, I'm going to leave it at this 16:9 and we'll stay a little close in. So here's my goal. I want to make this black and white. I also want to make a high contrast photo. So let's start off with the black and white conversion. We're going to select convert to, it says B&W, so convert to black and white. And there you go. You've got a monochrome or grayscale, whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't have any draw or appeal to it yet. One of the first things you can do is you can start looking at the luminance values of different colors to try and enhance a tone based upon a color or decrease it. So in this case, I'm going to look at my cyans, my blues, and my magentas. And I'm bringing those colors up, and you notice that there's an immediate difference in how the contrast of this photo looks. So the sky, I'm going to leave that kind of looking almost white, and I wanted to get more contrast right here. So let's take a quick look. This is where we were at the beginning, and this is where we've gone to. So that's good enough for me. Now, if you click on saturation, it's going to bring colors back in. So if I bring the blue back in, you'll notice how it's got that blue tint over here. The sky turns a little bit blue. I don't want that. I want this to be, pretty much a pure monochrome. So that starts our black and white conversion. I would say start with your luminance values. Look at the colors that may be in there. If you're looking at a person, you're probably going to be looking at reds and yellows to see how that affects skin tones. And obviously, sometimes blue can affect skin tones, but we'll save that for another story. Now, I want to add some details on here. Mostly, I'm going to ignore this for right now because I'm going to take care of some of that. I'm going to add some sharpening. And I'm going to come down to sharpen mask. I don't want to sharpen every little thing. I want my sharpening mask kind of high because really all I want to do is sharpen these edges. Now, I'm going to do something you probably wouldn't expect. I'm going to come over here to the portrait tab, and I'm going to click on high key because the look I want is actually a bit of a high key look. And I kind of want black and white. I want a bright colored image. So I'm going to bring this up a bit. And as I bring it up even further, you can see how it's kind of it's brightening up the background, but also these metal tiles, I'm going to assume that it's aluminum, are really changing. And I'm kind of like the look that I'm getting there. Now, you could also play with a dynamic high key and just change what you're affecting. I think the idea for me is high contrast. So I'm going to keep this down. I'm going to bring up the standard high key, and then I'm going to play with my blacks. I think I'm going to bring those down because I still really want some dark spaces. I want these edges to be black. So, and we'll take a look here. I'm going to bring off the glow. I don't really want that, but I do want some contrast. And let's go ahead and take a look again at our before and after. This is our original photo, with the exception of the crop. And this is what we have right now. So I'm looking for a geometric shape in kind of a high contrast look for this particular photo. So I'm just looking around. We could do something with the optics. We could make sure that we've checked these boxes to, correct any distortions. In this particular architecture, the whole building is a distortion to me, but that just kind of gives you a chance to take care of any pin cushion or barrel issues that you have, remove some chromatic aberrations. I think it's a good thing to look at when you're working on your photographs. And I'm going to call this one done right here. Now, also keep in mind, if you want to, you can come down here to the bottom with this template. You can click the button here to save this as a template if you like it. You can lower this little slider here to change the opacity. But my whole intent for this photo was kind of a high-key, high-contrast look. And we could keep on going, but I've met my goal, so I'm going to stop right there. On this one, we're looking at yet another architectural type of photo from Epcot at Walt Disney World. So let me go ahead. I'm going to click on Edit. And since we're already on the Professional tab, I'm going to go ahead and click these buttons for the optics and just let that correct itself a little bit. Then we'll go over to the Essentials tab. I'll click on Composition. And again, I have a 16:9 crop that you can see. And what I'm looking for here is I don't want to lose the top of Spaceship Earth, but down here at the bottom, it's very dark and it's hard to see. There's a base for this fountain, and I don't want to lose that because we're going to do a little bit of work with that. So we're going to keep this crop. And let's just see, there may be a little bit of adjustment we can do. It seems like it might be slightly lopsided. Yeah, this base I think was just a little bit off, so I went ahead and changed the angle on that to give it a little bit of correction. There's a number of places where we could start, but again, since primarily what we're looking at is black and white, I'm going to go ahead and select black and white. We're going to convert to black and white. And notice like the colors are very cool on top and very warm on the bottom. And that's affecting our highlights and shadows. So if I pull down the reds, it gets darker. I really want to push up these red colors and the yellow colors because I'm trying to get more brightness out of this. Now on the top, we had blue and purple colors. So if we come over here and push those up a little bit, it gets brighter there. And on the magenta, we can see it kind of fills in there a little bit. This is all done to taste. You may want some more shadow in some places and highlights in others, but that's what I wanted out of my conversion. So let's go down to look at the details. Again, I want to do quite a bit of sharpening over here, and I want to bring up the mask, so I'm kind of sharpening the edges. I may come back and do something with the details, but I've got another idea. I'm going to come back over here to the Portrait tab and do the same thing. I'm going to select High Key. I'm going to bring this up to about 50%. Pull down the glow. I'm going to push up the standard high key. And now the dynamic high key. And I'm going to open up the blacks just a little bit. And what I'm looking for is I wanted to open up the shadows in these trees. And over here, you almost couldn't see these before. And I also wanted to give just a little bit more here to the front so you can kind of see some of that texture. What I don't like is the fact that it's given too much of a bright boost to Spaceship Earth. So I'm going to come over here to this little button, and I'm going to paint a mask. Now you could probably do this with a radial mask, but what I want to do is erase everything that is happening here inside of Spaceship Earth. And there we go. It's not a perfect mask, but also it doesn't have to be. So let's turn this off. We were there, and you can see how dark it is over here in this area. And even these trees that you can make out, there weren't very much, and you can't see much right over here. But when we turn this back on, what I've done is I've used high key to kind of bring out and open up some shadows here and just give you an idea of what's going on down here. And then I masked it out over Spaceship Earth, so I didn't have too much of a high key there. Basically, what I'm saying is there are a number of ways that you can use different tools to reach what you want to. You can use masking. I could have done a radial mask on Spaceship Earth since it's round. I could have used the light tool to kind of open up the shadows over here. But I thought it was interesting to try and do something with the high key tool just to show that there are other options. And quite honestly, I think this method is faster and gives me more control than some of the other methods that are out there. So let's take a quick look at Pro. And I want to look at super contrast, because what I'm looking at now is the detail that I want to put here in Spaceship Earth. And I may end up doing another mask in order to make sure it's there, but let's start off with our mid-tone contrast. And I'm going to play with the balance to see what I like. And I kind of like the balance over here. So I like what I've got with the detail and the contrast there. I'm going to check out the highlights contrast. And again, I don't want so much, but I'm going to play with the highlights balance. I don't think that makes a significant difference as far as the balance. I'm going to leave that where it is. And then I want to take a look at the shadows. So I'm particularly looking at the trees and this base. And that really brightened things up here. I'm going to pull this balance down and push it up. And all I'm doing is saying, what happens when I move these sliders? It's not like I typically know in advance, but I'm not sure if I really like this with the shadows contrast or not. Let me pull this down. I actually kind of like it without the shadows contrast, so I'm going to leave that alone. Let's come back to the Essentials tab and Details. And I'm going to just boost up medium details a little bit. I liked what it did when we were at the super contrast. And I like it here as well. And I can do some masking over here for details protection. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference for me on this particular photo, but this is what I'm looking for. I want these geographic kind of shapes. I want to have contrast between the bright parts and the dark parts, just to give some idea of depth and dimension that this is a spherical surface. In other words, it's just not a flat picture. And that's really all I'm looking for. The trees over here are just to kind of fill out a bit of space. I don't want to brighten up this part because that's not my subject. And I'm going to call this one done. All right, so this is the concert photo. And there's a couple of things I'm looking at here. You can see there's a curtain behind him. There's a little bit of a red tint in there. And also there's a bit of a pattern. And you can see that we've got warm lighting on him. And it's very bright here on the keyboard and even on this surface on the keyboard. So I kind of want to control that a little bit. And let's go ahead and hit edit. I'm happy with my composition. I am going to take a look at the optics and click these just to see if anything changes. And then we're going to come back over here to Essentials. We're going to click black and white and convert to black and white. Okay, so it's kind of a flat black and white image. You can still see the pattern over there. I want to see what this happens with his skin tones as I move the reds and yellows around. So usually I start off kind of pulling things down. But what I'm looking at is you see how it's affecting the brightness on his face. In this particular one, since that's where I want to go, I want a bit of brightness on his skin tones. But we're going to play with the blues. And you see how as I slide that up, it really brightens up this area on the keyboard. So I'm probably going to pull that down. I don't want to have too much light over here when I'm trying to direct your attention to the expression on his face. Also, if you take a closer look in here, let's zoom in. This was taken in low light areas, so there's quite a bit of grain here. I was using a high ISO. So I think what I'm going to do is a little bit of denoise on him as well. So let's go back down to hit the screen, and we'll come down here to denoise. And this works exceptionally well. I usually start at 50% to see if that's enough. And pretty much it is. I'll do a little bit of color denoise because I always use these in combination. I may not need that much denoise because I'm trying not to lose details. But I think on this one, I'm going to leave it at 50. All right, so I still have a little bit of the pattern back here. I think I'm going to come back over to black and white. And I brought the red up to help his skin. I liked it. I liked what I got back here in the background. If I pulled the red down, I didn't have anything disturbing me there. So I may do something else to try and lighten up his face. So I'm actually going to leave the red down right here. And if I want to light up his face, the first thing I think of is go to Portrait and Face. And then we'll add just a little bit of face light. And I'm bringing that up probably about 25. Now, I don't want to do slim face. The man is who he is. I'm not trying to make a sexy portrait here. But I'm probably also going to go take a look at skin. And I don't want to fix his skin, but I want to see if the shine removal does anything for me. I'm just kind of dancing around here to see what the results are on on here. And I think that's probably a bit too much. I'm going to come back down here, maybe about 60, and just pull some of the shine off of his face. All right, so the next thing that I'm thinking of is he's kind of in this little space. I just want to make sure that we're drawing attention to him. And I think what I'll do is I'll come over here to this local masking, and we will add a mask. We're going to make a gradient mask. And I want to change the exposure just to darken it a little bit over on this side. There we go. Probably a little bit too much. Let me bring this back over here. All I really want to do is I'm not quite doing a vignette, but I just kind of wanted to darken up that side over there. I think I might have this, and that works for me. So let's take a quick look at before. And we had that warm light, and you know, to me, the background was just a little bit of a distraction. I wanted to turn this down and isolate it, kind of like it was on a black background, and just, you know, let him and his emotion kind of fill things in. I might still go ahead and do one more mask. Do a basic one. On this one, I'm going to paint, and I just kind of want to paint in on the front of his face and add just a little bit of light and open up the exposure a little bit. We might do the same thing with opening up the shadows. Let's see how that works. And it's just a little kiss of light right on the front of him because I want you looking at him. So yeah, I think that'll work out nicely. All right, so this one is a portrait. I've had this one for years, but let's go ahead and see what we can do. There's a number of things that we want to fix. We want to fix this shine over here. We're probably going to want to use the portrait skin enhancer over here, and maybe we'll see how it works down here, like on our chest and our arm. I've got this, this is basically a C-stand over here that's in the light, so we can clone that out, but I'm not going to worry about that for the photograph. And let's take a look and see what happens when we edit. So let me start over here with our composition AI. And I'm going to change this to 16 by 9. And again, the reason I do the 16 by 9 is because I like it. No other reason like that. Now, we've got a lot of space over here. Kind of like having that up there. Let me go back. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go back to the original. And we're just going to make this a little bit smaller. So we cut out that C-stand. And I'm going to go with that for my composition. So let's see what we can do to kind of clean up her texture before we convert this into a black and white. So we're going to go over to the portrait tab. And we'll start with the face. And I don't think we need face light. Matter of fact, I like this shadow over here. That was the whole purpose of lighting the way we did. This is kind of like a 45-degree down with a deep octabox. So let's go back over here to skin. And I'm going to bring up the amount to 50%. And I'm also going to bring up the shine and click defects removal. I want to bring up skin a little bit more. There may be some things that we still need to go through and clean up manually, but it has done a very good job there. And as far as the defects removal, it's gotten most of it. The shine removal, I'm still not sure about, because I don't want this to look fake up here. And you see this little highlight over here, and this is kind of changed a little bit. I'm probably going to bring this back down about 77. I don't mind highlights. What I'm trying to do is eliminate the specularity. And I just don't want to have something unnatural over here. So let me go ahead and take a look in just a little bit closer. And I think I'm happy with that. So we're not going to use high key on this one. We're not going to do any body changes on here. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go over to professional. I'm going to go to the clone and stamp tool. And I'm going to zoom in back to where we were. The tool kind of zoomed us out. So the first thing I need to do is click to set the source. I'm going to click right over here. That brush is way too big. You want to have your brush just slightly larger than the area that you're going to be fixing. The other thing is I want to make sure that the area that I'm sampling is a good clean area. And you can see there's some little spots over here from where things are sampling. I might want to resample at a time. So let me go back and do that. And you see that's getting me just a little bit too bright of a spot. So the real trick between sampling, whether it's over here to her left side, to our right side, or over here, there's gradation coming on with the lighting. So if you don't sample from the right area, you're going to end up with little spots like that. So let me go ahead and undo those. And to do that, we can come down here and click this little clock, and you'll see the history. And we can just kind of step our way back. Then hit the clock when you're done. And let's move down here and get rid of that little spot right there. Just a couple of little spots that the defects tab didn't get for us. I'm going to come over here on our arm as well. And I don't plan on doing everything. I mean, you don't want to take away all the texture when you're doing your skin smoothing. You just want to get any obvious spots kind of out of the way. Let's back off. And I'm happy with that. So let's go back over here to our Essentials tab. I'm going to go back to Fit to Screen, click on Black and White, and convert to black and white. Right off the bat, I'm digging that. Let's see what happens when we play with our skin tones are usually with the reds and yellows. So I'm going to pull back a little bit on the red, a little on the yellow. Let's brighten it up and some. And I'm liking whether I brighten up with the yellow. I think the red is giving me a little bit too much. So I want to pull the reds back just a bit. So this is like 9 or 10 over here. I'm liking that. So let's go over to our details. Every photo needs a little bit of sharpening. Again, I'm going to do a sharpening mask over here. So that was the idea, just to kind of let you see how black and white conversions can work. You still need to use your other tools to clear up any issues or problems that you have. Sometimes it might be a local adjustment mask. Sometimes it might be working with color to like we saw with the luminance values on black and white, to go in there and pull some values down and bring some up, because you're looking at the tones of the photograph in black and white, and those color values are going to affect and impact the tone. That's why I like to work in a workflow of texture, tone, and color. So by that, I mean that texture, I'm going to be cleaning up maybe some skin tone. I might be doing my cropping. Tone could be the black and white conversion itself, and then adjusting the color values for that. If this were a color photo, the last thing I would want to do is work on the color, because color changes can affect your tone and texture. So you won't want to see what's being changed as you're making those adjustments. Hey, if you like this video, please go ahead, click the button down below to like it. And if you really liked it, I'd love it if you would subscribe. And don't forget, click that little bell notification icon. You can share this with a friend if they find something here that will help them. Also, please take a look in the description below. I've got links for discounts on a number of software tools, including Luminar AI. If you get this before it goes live on December 15th, you can still save a little bit of money. And after that, I should have a coupon code. If you're watching this later on and you want to save money, please check the description and I'll make sure that I've got it updated with my coupon code. So with that in mind, I'll see you in the next video.